I want to have a good look at the main issue that stops people using their camper van during the winter months. And I've got some solutions. But before I head back to the camper van to talk about that, I'm enjoying the trails here in the Ardvericke deer forest, which is kind of midway between Aviemore and Fort William. So why don't you join me as I head back to the van and we'll get down there and put a brew on, okay? See you there. That's 3:45 now, and it's getting dark already. The light's almost gone. Whew. So what I'm going to do is just get the bike sorted here, get in the van and drive somewhere for a park up overnight. Okay, let's go. Believe it or not, it's just gone 4 o'clock and it's pitch black outside. I've got 1 or 2 wee jobs to do and then it'll be time to settle in for the night. And it'll be a long night, 15 or 16 hours of darkness. And that's what a lot of camper vanners really can't handle. How do you fill in the long hours of a winter evening in a camper van? How do you prevent sheer boredom sending you scuttling off to bed at 9 o'clock at night or 8:30 or even earlier? Okay, before I suggest some ideas for filling in this time in a fairly good and constructive way, it's good to remember that we're all different. While many folks struggle with what appears to be a long, boring evening with nothing to do, others might actually relish that time especially those folk who have busy lives and are slaves to the needs and orders of other people. For these folk, the thought of having a few hours with nothing particular to do will be magic. And that might even be probably one of the main attractions of campervan life. To be honest with you, I quite enjoy the routine that I have after many years of campervan living during the winter months. If I'm out, say walking or hiking during the day, or maybe riding my bike, I don't mind walking the last few miles in the light of my head torch. I kind of love that period when daylight eases its way into the evening. Here in Scotland, we call it the gloaming. It's the magical hour. So before I suggest my 5 recommendations for usefully filling in time in a campervan during these long dark evenings, let me say one thing. Unless your campervan is well heated, then boredom may not be the only issue you face. Staying warm and comfortable is crucial, or else you may as well stay at home. Okay, so filling time. So here are my top 5 tips for usefully filling in these long winter evenings in a campervan. And I think I'll start with number 1, preparation for future trips. Now, this past year, my wife and I went to Ireland. We had a month in Ireland, and that took a bit of planning. We travelled over to Belfast by the ferry, drove down past Newgrange and the Hill of Tara, past Dublin, down to Cork, and then along through West Cork and up the wild Atlantic Way from Mizenhead, the north southwesterly point of Ireland, to Mallinhead, the most northerly part of Ireland. Then we came round the Cosby coast and back to Belfast. And it was a great trip. It took a bit of planning, and for me, that's part of the fun of going on a campervan trip like that. A month away, it takes a fair bit of planning. Where are you going to stay at night? You're going to stay in Ayers, or are there going to be any Ayers? So we did find some quite useful information. There's an app we had called Motorhome Ireland, and that was very, very useful. So that was great. Later on in the year, we had 3 weeks in the French Alps and the Italian Alps, and again it took a bit of planning. We went through the Channel Tunnel and drove in a couple of days down to Chamonix in the French Alps, and then we went along a beautiful big long valley called the Tarentaise, and then up over the Pitti San Bernard Pass into northern Italy, and we visited the Gran Paradiso National Park, which was absolutely fantastic. So again, a bit of practice in languages is quite useful. We spent some quite happy evenings practicing a wee bit of French and a wee bit of Italian, and again seeking out areas and campsites that are going to be open in that case late in the year. So what I'm doing tonight in terms of preparation is for a trip. We're going next year. We're going to have a month away in Spain and Portugal. So again, that'll take a bit of planning. We're going to drive down through France into Spain and probably across Spain into Portugal, and then come back round the coast, and we're coming home from Santander to Portsmouth. What I found quite useful is these Ayers books. These there's 2 books, the north of France and the south of France, full of information, and they're really useful for planning. And you can get a lot of that information, of course, on Park for the Night or search for sites. So lots of planning to be done. You can spend an hour or so, a couple of hours in the dark winter nights, just making some plans, looking at campsites, looking at Ayers, finding where you go. And it's also a great time just to practice. I've got this little Spanish phrase book with me, and it's good to be able to speak a wee bit of the language when you're in a different country, and people certainly appreciate it, even though you're not very good at it. So there's tip number 1, planning for future trips. Okay, tip number 2, reading books. Now, I've said reading books as opposed to just reading, because so many campervanners these days use a Kindle. And a Kindle's great, it's fantastic if you don't want to carry a library of books with you, and books do take up a bit of space in a small campervan. Kindle is fantastic. You can take a whole library of books, and it's very, very useful. But I want to make a special plea for authors of books, as I am. I've written 22 books, and books that go on Kindle earn authors very, very little in terms of royalties. It's next to nothing. Neither are the money that goes to publishers, who spend a lot of money in producing books. So while the Kindle is great in so many ways, I'm kind of reluctant to really recommend it. And I think probably better, can afford it and you've got the money, is to buy proper books. I've got 2 books with me on this little trip I'm on tonight. Both of them, funnily enough, written by good friends of mine. These 2 guys are both outdoors guys, as I am. First one is called The Hot Tent Diaries, and it's written by a guy called John Burns. And John was a great lover of bothies, these open shelters you'll find in the wild parts of the country. And during lockdown, he didn't particularly want to share bothies with other people because of COVID and the pandemic. So he bought himself one of these sort of teepee type tents. He would, I think he's got a trailer that he puts in the back of his car, and he carries this big kind of wigwam with him. And the great thing about this wigwam is why it's called a hot tent. This is a wood-burning stove inside it. And he says it's great, even in the depth of winter when snow is covering the ground, he can sit in there just in his trousers and a t-shirt with a wood-burning stove. And it really sounds like posh glamping. But this is his book, all about it. And his diaries. It's quite an amusing book. It's quite a light read, and it's one I'd certainly recommend. Another book is a lot heavier, in terms of weight and in terms of content. It's called Himalaya, or if you're American, Himalaya, by a grand lad that I've known since he was a teenager almost, called Ed Douiglas. And Ed's a very, very fine writer. And this is called Himalaya, A Human History. And it's really everything you'd want to know about the Himalayan countries, Nepal, Bhutan, India, Pakistan. It's fantastic. And my interest in this book is probably quite personal. I recently became patron of a charity called the Little Sherpa Foundation. And this is a charity that was set up after the great earthquakes in Nepal in 2015, when many tens of thousands of people lost their lives over there. And the Little Sherpa Foundation raises money to help the Sherpa community in the Khumbu area of Nepal, and that's the big kind of valley that leads up to Mount Everest. Sherpas are well known as porters and now as guides, and also great mountaineers. But every little community, when there's a big accident on the mountains, tends to lose one of their sons or 2 of their sons. So when I became patron of that charity, I decided I was going to learn as much as I could about the Himalaya and Nepal in particular. And Ed's book is ideal for that. It's a wonderful book. So there we go. It's a couple of books, and of course my Kindle, plenty of reading material, and that can take up many hours of dark campervan nights. Okay, my third tip for spending time in the campervan during the dark winter evenings is the humble telly, the telly. Except it's not a telly. I'm using my computer, my MacBook Pro. I've got a television that I've used in campervans in the past, but we don't have any, signal or antenna or whatever. So we tend to use that simply for watching DVDs. But what I found is even better is just to take the computer along, and I use the computer. It's kind of hooked up to the internet via my iPhone, so that's quite useful if you've got a 4G signal, and that gives me the adaptability to watch a whole number of things. I can watch Prime, I can watch Netflix, I can watch BBC iPlayer, but I just want to wave the flag a wee bit tonight for good old YouTube, because you're watching this on YouTube anyway, and it's just there's a wealth of stuff on YouTube. My wife and I use it all the time. If you want a recipe, YouTube. If there's something kind of not quite right with us, we want to check it out, YouTube. Want to find out about good books, YouTube. One of my favourite series on YouTube is Living the Van Life, and it's all about a guy who basically lives in the Pacific Northwest area of the United States. He travels a lot in Western USA, sometimes goes down to Baja, California, into Mexico, and he's a fantastic cinematographer, a fantastic storyteller, and his videos follow a kind of pattern. He goes through some fantastic scenery. He uses a drone to great advantage. He'll show you the countryside. He'll stop. He'll cook a meal. Quite often he'll cook a meal outside and just sit and watch the stars. But there's something just fantastic about it. And he seems to be able to go into these overlanding areas that we just don't have in the UK, and they can travel for miles and miles and miles on his all-terrain camper van. But that's one that I enjoy very, very much. So yeah, using YouTube, looking at YouTube videos on a computer screen is a great way to pass some time. When I'm camping wild and away from campsites, no EHU, I'll use my my Bluetti to charge up and keep the computer running. This is very useful bit of kit. Okay, my fourth tip for spending time in a camper van during the long winter evenings is listening to music and playing music. I use my iPhone, and I've got a library of music of all kinds. I'm particularly keen on Scottish and Irish traditional music. I'm keen on opera. I'm keen on 60s stuff, the Beatles and Stones and whatnot. So I've got a huge library in there. And I play it in the camper van using this little Bose speaker. It's a fantastic, it's tiny, it's a tiny little thing. And again, it can be powered up via the Bluetti or a power station. I like nothing more than to sit in the camper van with the lights dimmed, maybe with a wee dram of whiskey, and listen to music. And my wife and I do this for an hour on end when we're away, and we'll just pick a kind of range of songs and tunes. So listening to music is very, very important to us. The other thing that's quite important to me is actually playing music, and I'm not very good at it. I play the guitar and I've got a banjo and various things. And this winter, I'm trying to teach myself the humble penny whistle. I mentioned I like Irish traditional music, and the penny whistle is always found in folk groups. I'm not very good at it yet, so you'll have to forgive me, but let me try with this one. Sorry, a work in progress, you could say, the humble penny whistle. Now, a number of years ago, I decided I was going to have a project during the winter, and that project was to learn to play the Irish bouzouki, and this is the Irish bouzouki. Very, very similar to the Greek bouzouki, but the Greek bouzouki has a kind of curved back. And this is, as you can see, it's got a flat back, and it became very popular. Some guys in the 60s went to Eastern Europe and they picked up bouzouki's there, and they brought them home and they started playing them in folk groups and adapting them slightly, changing the tuning just a little bit. It's a great instrument. I like it. You can either play melodies or you can play you use it as a rhythm instrument. You know, it's or you can play wee tunes on it. Or you can play a mixture of both. You can play it as a rhythm instrument with a bit of a melody, like this one. You might know this tune. I once had a girl, or should I say, she once had me. She showed me her room, isn't it good, Norwegian? She asked me to stay and she told me to stay. But I had to run and I noticed there was no chance. And I sat on the rock, lighting my tongue, drinking her wine. We talked until 2, and then she said, it's time for bed. She told me she worked in the morning instead of night. I told her I couldn't, called up to sleep in her bath. And when I awoke, I was alone, this perfect friend. So I lit a fire, isn't it good, Norwegian? Okay, and the final tip I have for you tonight for spending long evenings in a camper van is, of course, cooking. And I mentioned earlier that in the summertime I tend to make do with one-pot meals, but in the camper van in winter I like to take a wee bit of time over it and cook something just a wee bit different. And tonight I'm going to cook for you some pesto pasta. I've got a little bit of pasta here. I've got some crushed cashew nuts, some feta cheese, some garlic butter, and of course pesto, and a few leaves of spinach, on the basis that if it was good enough for Popeye, then it's probably good enough for me. So I'm going to start off by just frying up some garlic cloves. Oh, we've got some boiling water over here, so just before I do the garlic, I'll stick the pasta into the boiling water. And that gets that started, gets the spaghetti started. So good one there in there, good. As I was saying, I like garlic in a lot of dishes, and it works pretty well with this dish. It's quite an interesting dish. I saw someone doing this on the internet, and I thought it looked nice and relatively simple, and relatively healthy. Cashew nuts and a little bit of garlic and some spinach and some feta cheese. Chop the garlic up fairly fine. And I'm going to put it into the bottom half of, or one half of our Ridge Monkey, which I find a really good kind of frying pan. It does cook things up pretty well. I just want that garlic to brown just a little bit. Just check the pasta as we go along. Yeah, it's looking good. So that garlic's just beginning to brown slightly. So as that garlic browns, I'm going to take the crushed cashew nuts and add them to the garlic. If I can get the knot undone. I'll add them together, and I really just want to kind of brown these slightly. I'm going to brown them and then lay them aside. That's it. Mix them with the garlic. We're trying to get the spaghetti kind of al dente, so it's you know, it's not too soft, and it's got a bit of firmness, and that's the way I like it anyway. Okay, so how's the cashew nuts getting? Oh, they smell good, I'll tell you. Yeah, they're just beginning to brown slightly. Okay, I think the pasta's ready, so I'm just going to drain it. And quite a useful little drainer here. You see the little holes here. It works as quite an effective little sort of colander. Okay, I think these cashew nuts have brown satisfactory. And we'll leave that there. And to the spaghetti, I'm going to add a big blob of this garlic butter. And give it a good mix. And into the pasta as well, as much pesto as you like. I'm using green pesto. You sometimes get red pesto. This is actually basil pesto, so I'll put a nice chunk in there. I rather like pesto, so I'll probably put in quite a lot. There we go. That looks good. It gives a lovely flavour to the pasta, and since this is pesto pasta, then you know, we kind of wanted to taste of pesto, so that's mixing quite nicely in there. You see, that's mixing, going this kind of nice green colour. So we'll put that there. Let's get rid of this garlic butter. And also I'm going to add some feta cheese. Now this is this stuff's just a little bit runny, so I'll try and get it out without making too much of a mess. This adds a kind of a piquant flavour to the pesto and the cashew nuts, and it's I think it's rather nice. Okay, so let's pour the pasta into the bowl. Add some of the nuts to the top. break up some of this feta cheese and add that as well. And finally, just tear up some spinach. Sprinkle it around the top. This is baby spinach, and as I mentioned, I quite like it, and it's one of the daily 5, I'm told. So there we have it, our pesto pasta. So here we go. Let's see what it's like. Good. The feta cheese adds just a little bit of piquant flavour, and the nuts add a wee bit of crunchiness to the pasta, which of course is flavoured with pesto, and it's lovely. So there you have it, my top tips for making the most of these long dark nights in a camper van. The long evenings can be fantastic. They can be very enjoyable, doing all the things that I've told you, and lots of other things. You could have board games, you could have you play cards with your partner or your friends, all sorts of things you can do. So it needn't be a long, boring evening. And I certainly don't find them long and boring. I very much enjoy them because it's so different from the sort of evenings I spend at home. So there you go. If you found this video useful at all, could I maybe ask you to subscribe to the channel, click that little bell as well, and it'll notify you every time we've got a new video coming. So all I can say just now is enjoy your winter, enjoy the long nights, and most of all, enjoy your camper van. See you next time. Bye-bye.